Here's Michael Komorn, Planet Green Trees.
Coming back, he's got the headphones on. But,
all right,
we're back.
We're back.
When you're talking, tell us your website and other things for your campaign.
Alan, we are back.
Thanks for staying with us. Listen to Planet Green Trees, episode number 477. We're very excited now to have our first guest of the evening. Running for Oakland County Sheriff, Vincent Gregory has got a very, very long history of accomplishments, going all the way back to being part of the U.S. Marine Corps, running for various offices in the state of Michigan, county commissioner in Oakland County, both holding office as a representative and a senator in the state of Michigan. Many, many accomplishments and committees and involvement in government service. We're excited to have him on as the contender against Michael Bouchard. So please welcome our first guest, Vincent Gregory. Thanks for being on tonight.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about the campaign.
Well, we were just bidding adieu to Jessica Cooper. And I know that there's a huge difference in the two candidates, but one of the reasons why many that are here tonight and that are of any interest is because of her terrible position on cannabis and her really leading the charge against medical cannabis since 2009 to, just till recently. And of course, that doesn't go on without the Sheriff Bouchard either being the commander of that or working in alliance with her. What is your perception on the way that medical cannabis was handled by the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, and how much of that is driven by Bouchard versus Cooper?
Well, I'm not sure as Bouchard versus Cooper is with Bouchard with Cooper. I think that the sheriff himself, I think he really has a bias against cannabis. But when Proposition 1 was when it was being voted on, I don't think there was any sheriffs at all in the state that supported it. I think the majority of them opposed it. So that kind of tells you about where most of the sheriffs were, and Bouchard was certainly one of the main ones in there. When I was in the Michigan State Senate, when I was in the House, I think the medical marijuana had just been approved, and we were trying to get the license for a lot of the residents in the state in order to be able, so they could go out and purchase it or get it from their caregivers and that kind of thing. And that drug on for a while. And while that was dragging on, of course, Mike Bouchard used that as an opportunity to go out and raid a lot of places. So, he said that people didn't have a right to have it. And yet we had passed the law for medical marijuana, but he still felt that because you didn't have a card, you were illegal and we're going to raid it. Now, he was one of the few sheriffs that was doing that aggressive policing of marijuana. So that's something that went on, and yet, he was never really held accountable for it. There was no real, people questioned it. A lot of people went to jail for that, and he ruined a lot of people's lives. He confiscated a lot of things from people, and yet there was nothing that really, there was no consequences for the sheriff for doing what he did, and that's the kind of things that you don't want in law enforcement. You want a police officer or a law enforcement officer to be responsible to the public that he serves and to listen to, and especially since it had passed by such an overwhelming margin, listen to the people, respect the people. But that was not the case with Bouchard when medical marijuana was approved.
I think one of the the most disturbing thing about the way that was handled, I would agree, it was a very aggressive policing of medical cannabis, was that there was not a lot of clarity in the law at the time. It almost made it unfair for individuals.
No, because Sheriff Bouchard is on record as calling it like the Michigan Medical Marijuana Exemption Act. I mean, he clearly was going to interpret it in whatever far conservative way that he could. He had it out for it. I think Mr. Gregory is absolutely
he
right.
did. I believe he did. I believe that was his view. And and it's hard to distinguish whether he just had that belief that cannabis medical marijuana was wrong, or that he just felt that this was a drug, and I just don't agree with any kind of drugs at all being legalized. And then on top of that, this means that this will cut into the revenues that I have in the department. So I don't know which one of those played a role. Maybe all of them did, but certainly he certainly showed that he was opposed to it, took an aggressive stance against it. And I would say even to this day, he has never really backed up from his position on medical marijuana or cannabis at all.
No, totally agree with you, 100%.
It's do you think that I mean, there's obviously has to be a relationship between the sheriff and the prosecutor's office.
Oh yeah.
And I was talking before you came on about, everyone plays like it's the executive branch of government, but the prosecutors serve, they're lawyers and they are supposed to seek justice. Not to say that the officers don't, but it's a different function and role. The sheriffs make the case, they make the arrest, they get the confession, they investigate the witnesses, and they turn the case over. They don't decide the charges. And the prosecutors will decide what charges are going to be issued, and what and if not, they're going to tell them to go get more evidence or deny the warrant. And we believe in that system as a checks and balance, so to speak. But I've been practicing law for 26 years. A couple other people on here, likewise, the same period of time. There's almost a constant capitulation to the policing by the prosecutors. There's no real independence, and I wonder, not that it has to be. You'd like to have those parties on the same page about what their philosophies are and policies, but do you have an opinion on how prosecutors capitulate to law enforcement, that whether you think they do play that fundamental role in the issuance of charges, or do they just rely upon, and do sheriffs have that much influence over prosecutors?
Well, I think that the sheriff and the prosecutor, they really have to work together. There's no question about it. I think that looks like Karen McDonald, it doesn't look like Karen McDonald is now our candidate for the Oakland County prosecutor in the November election. And I think she's at least demonstrated through her years in the court system, and at least what she talked about, being a progressive prosecutor. And I think that as a progressive prosecutor, it will be none of the old ways that we used to do things. And I think that the country itself, Oakland County, the country, is evolving now. We are not that same place we used to be. I think we're changing. I think you saw the push for that in Wayne County with the challenge to Kim Worthy there. I think that the prosecutors themselves are now being pushed in a different direction. They're asking them to consider a lot of these people that are being charged with crimes, especially minor crimes. They're looking at them to say, instead of jailing them, let's come up with some other programs. So I think that the sheriff and the prosecutor, they have a place to work together to try to come up with solutions. I think that the sheriff can make recommendations. I think that, and I think that the sheriff himself, times have changed now. We are not the lock them up and throw away the key type law enforcement. We shouldn't be anymore. We should be more about trying to, on the big cases, the robberies and the big cases. Yeah, the sheriff has an important role. They will do that. But on some of these minor cases, these drug cases, I don't think the sheriff has to take such a heavy hand as they've taken over the years. I think that times are changing, and we need to change with the times. I think people have demanded that. They've shown that, at least with these changes in the laws. And I think that we should respect what people have said and follow along with that.